In today's world, we're surrounded by information, news, social media, ads, and more. But how much of what we consume is truly free of manipulation? How often do we unknowingly fall into the grip of carefully crafted narratives, pushing us towards a certain belief or action? The issue of propaganda is more relevant now than ever before, with its impact reaching deep into our personal lives, societies, and politics. But what exactly is propaganda, and how has it evolved over time? More importantly, how is it shaping our world today? Let's dive into this complex topic and explore its evolving nature. Part 1. Why propaganda is relevant and how it affects our lives. Imagine opening your phone to check the news, only to find conflicting headlines about the same event. One outlet claims a victory, while another proclaims a loss. It can leave you feeling confused, unable to discern the truth. This is the power of propaganda. Propaganda isn't just about spreading lies. It's about shaping how we view the world, influencing our decisions, and even steering the course of history. Whether we realize it or not, propaganda affects us every day, through the media we consume, the politicians we follow, or even the ads we scroll past. It's not just a tool of tyrants. In democracies, it can be used to sway elections, influence policies, and control public sentiment. Understanding the power and danger of propaganda is crucial if we are to navigate the complex landscape of information in the 21st century. Part 2. What is propaganda? To understand propaganda, we must first define it. In its simplest form, propaganda is the deliberate spread of information, whether true or false, to influence public opinion. Edward Bernays, the father of modern public relations, wrote extensively about how information could be used to manipulate people's thoughts and behaviors. In his book Propaganda, 1928, he argued that propaganda is the executive arm of the invisible government, shaping public opinion through mass communication. While propaganda often has a negative connotation, Bernays believed it could be used for both good and ill. In fact, he applied his own methods to help promote social causes like women's suffrage and public health initiatives, demonstrating how propaganda can be harnessed for positive outcomes. Part 3. The evolution of propaganda. Focus on dictatorship regimes. Propaganda has existed in various forms throughout history, but it reached new heights in the 20th century, particularly under authoritarian regimes. Governments like Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union mastered the use of mass media to control the narrative. As Sergei Guriev and Daniel Treisman explore in Spin Dictators, 2021, modern dictators have learned to use not just repression, but also propaganda to stay in power. These regimes recognized that controlling public perception was just as important as controlling the military. From Joseph Goebbels' manipulation of Nazi media to the Soviet Union's suppression of dissent, propaganda became a tool for shaping reality. The message wasn't just to suppress the truth, but to create a new version of reality, one that would justify the regime's actions, discredit its enemies, and rally the masses. Part 4. The form and substance of modern propaganda. Today, propaganda isn't just confined to state-controlled media, especially in authoritarian regimes. In fact, one of the most significant changes is the way propaganda is spread in democracies through decentralized platforms like social media. This change has been extensively explored in the HKS Misinformation Review's 2020 publication, Propaganda Analysis Revisited, which delves into how the digital age has altered both the reach and impact of propaganda. The key difference between democratic and authoritarian countries lies in the use of information control. While authoritarian governments maintain strict censorship and use their power to monopolize the media, democracies have traditionally relied on pluralistic media systems where various voices can challenge the government. However, the growth of digital platforms, particularly social media, has blurred these lines. In democratic countries, information is no longer just top-down, but is also driven by individuals and networks, creating new challenges for controlling propaganda. In authoritarian states like Russia, propaganda is still heavily state-directed, but it uses more sophisticated means, often utilizing social media bots, trolls, and algorithms to create alternative narratives that serve the state's agenda. As mentioned earlier, Russian propaganda regarding the war in Ukraine is a prime example of this. The Kremlin has spread a mix of contradictory narratives. one that portrays Ukraine as a puppet of the West, and another that presents Russia as fighting a defensive war against NATO aggression. This deliberate confusion makes it difficult for the public to form a cohesive understanding of reality. Such contradictory propaganda creates alternative realities, which help to solidify a parallel version of truth, distorting people's perception of events and history. Another aspect of modern propaganda is how it thrives on digital platforms, which are often unregulated. The HKS Misinformation Review highlights that social media algorithms prioritize content that engages users, often amplifying sensational and emotionally charged content. This creates a perfect storm for the spread of misinformation and propaganda. Propaganda is no longer a top-down tool used exclusively by governments. It is now a decentralized force where private entities, political groups, and even individuals can amplify their messages. In fact, the review suggests that social media platforms have become key battlegrounds for the spread of propaganda, especially in political contexts, as seen during elections and crises. The role of artificial intelligence (AI) in modern propaganda is another factor that cannot be ignored. AI algorithms can automatically generate deepfakes or convincing fake videos and manipulate news feeds, making it harder for the public to distinguish fact from fiction. This form of automation has greatly increased the scale and speed of disinformation campaigns, allowing them to reach millions of people in real time. Part 5. The threats propaganda poses. The threats of propaganda are far-reaching, and in today's interconnected world, they pose significant risks to democracy, peace, and security. Propaganda has increasingly been weaponized in modern geopolitical conflicts, used to destabilize foreign governments and incite violence. The power of disinformation can undermine trust in democratic institutions, as we've seen in several recent elections where false information shaped public opinion and skewed voting behavior. In a democracy, propaganda can erode the very foundation of the political system by distorting the truth, spreading lies, and pushing people towards extremist ideologies. Walter Lippmann, in Public Opinion, 1922, discussed how the manipulation of public opinion through propaganda leads to a scenario where citizens are no longer capable of making informed decisions. Instead, they are influenced by narratives constructed by powerful elites. This manipulation is particularly harmful in democracies, where a well-informed electorate is key to making free and fair choices. Moreover, propaganda has a serious impact on peace and security. In times of conflict, propaganda can escalate tensions, provoke violence, and justify atrocities. For example, the spread of hateful propaganda in Nazi Germany contributed directly to the widespread acceptance of violence against Jews and other marginalized groups. In today's world, propaganda in conflict zones, particularly through social media, can escalate violence, leading to real-world consequences like civil wars and ethnic violence. This is also seen in the Russian invasion of Ukraine, where propaganda has been used to fuel nationalist sentiments and demonize the Ukrainian people, making it easier to justify military aggression on the international stage. Propaganda here is not only a tool for controlling domestic narratives, but also for shaping the global perception of the war. The danger is that these strategies may become more effective as more people trust social media over traditional forms of news. In an era where information spreads instantaneously, the consequences of misinformation and propaganda are felt faster and more deeply than ever before. The RAND Corporation's 2018 report on disinformation highlighted that, unlike in the past, where propaganda took weeks or months to spread, today's digital campaigns can alter the trajectory of events almost overnight, with lasting global consequences. Part 6. Current proposals on how to contain propaganda. As the threat of propaganda grows, so do efforts to contain it. Media literacy remains one of the most discussed proposals. People must be taught how to critically assess the information they encounter, recognize bias, and understand the motives behind the messages they receive. In Age of Propaganda, 1991, Pratkanis and Aronson argue that critical thinking skills are essential in helping individuals distinguish between fact and propaganda, as propaganda often relies on emotional manipulation rather than logical reasoning. Another key strategy is regulating digital platforms. The European Union's Digital Services Act, DSA, for example, requires tech companies to be more transparent about the algorithms they use, while also providing mechanisms to flag harmful content. The Rand Corporation Report 2018 also points out that governments need to incentivize private tech companies to monitor and take down disinformation, especially when it poses a threat to democracy or public safety. Furthermore, there's a growing call for international cooperation in tackling disinformation. The spread of propaganda is no longer confined to national borders. It is a global issue that requires a global solution. Finally, new technologies like AI can be used to fight disinformation. AI can help track the origin of fake news, analyze patterns in social media to detect coordinated campaigns, and even create more sophisticated fact-checking tools. But just as AI can be used to spread disinformation, it can also be used to counter it, making it a crucial tool in the fight against modern propaganda. Propaganda is not a relic of the past. It's a powerful force shaping the present and future. With its ability to distort reality, create divisions, and manipulate public opinion, propaganda poses serious threats to democracy, peace, and global security. But by understanding how propaganda works and supporting efforts to contain it through media literacy, regulation, and international cooperation, we can protect ourselves and our societies from its harmful effects. In the battle for truth, the most important weapon we have is awareness. It's up to us to stay vigilant, question what we see, and ensure that the truth prevails.